Hello, my name is Lee Formella. Welcome to the Benefits of Bipolar video component, I guess we'll call it for now, series. I started a website called Benefits of Bipolar a couple of months ago. I have started to write a little bit. Wanted to try video because I'm not going to use or say this as a judgment, but people don't seem to read as much anymore and or they don't enjoy my writing. Not really sure. Um, but it's just another way, I guess, of trying to get my story out there. And I do have my first speaking engagement coming up, and so it's just another way of me to get reps. So for the my parents, maybe girlfriend, and maybe a sibling or two that watch this, I appreciate it. So to get into a little bit of why I'm doing this overall, if you haven't seen the website or read anything yet, it's to get my story out there. I mentioned that before. It's not because I think I'm important or my particular story is important in any way. It's just that there's not many people who have bipolar. Anywhere between the stats out there, 1 and 2.5% of the population have bipolar. There's not a lot of us. You see some Van Gogh stuff behind me. Unfortunately, his story isn't great, and those are the stories most people know about bipolar. They don't always hear about the Carrie Fishers of the world that people love who have bipolar, and other people who are doing well with it. So I'm not saying that I'm doing the best out of anybody out there. I'm not saying that what I'm doing and what I have done works, but I have seen enough people out there who have it who struggle, and I know what it was like to have and feel that hopelessness. Um, so I guess I'll start with that. Bipolar, when you're undiagnosed, or even when you are, or if you're lightly medicated or working your way up or unmedicated, you know all about it or you know nothing about it. It still sucks. It's a daily component. It's an hourly. It's a minute to minute. Sometimes it's second to second aspect of your life if you live with bipolar. My first 15, 16 years living with bipolar, I didn't know. It was undiagnosed, and it was awful. It just really was. It was the depression side is crippling. The anxiety, I mean, I wouldn't get off of my couch or my chair for what felt like days. I mean, other than to get up and work. And somehow I made it to work every day, but it was excruciating. The pain, I can feel the pain inside me right now of how uncomfortable it was just to be alive. The depression side of things, I personally, I just, I felt like I thought about suicide all the time, at times. It was just crippling, those thoughts, and it just gets tiring as well. So I kind of wanted to do this because it doesn't have to be that way, and for 15, 16 years of my life I thought it did. And honestly, for the first year and a half after I found out I had bipolar, I thought it did. And then for the next year after that, it still felt extremely limiting. um, and then for the next 6 months after that, it still felt like such a ceiling over my head, just having to tell people that I live with bipolar. If I chose, I shouldn't say that, you don't have to, but when I chose to tell people, it seemed like it just automatically placed a cap over me. And I was probably me doing that, but societally, it is certainly seen as a limitation. It can be seen as dangerous. It can be seen as so many different things that it can be. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everything people have said, everything people have seen, and every way people have portrayed bipolar is wrong. That's certainly not the case. Um, but that's not the whole story. The whole. That's not everybody's ability. Our abilities are so much more than that. I've been able to read and see and watch so many people now who have done amazing things with bipolar, that I just had never, I'd never thought about before. And so for me, that's what's most important, is that hopefully somebody, if it's one person, if me doing all of this is one person who's out there with their hands over their head, unable to think about anything other than 100 million racing thoughts through their head that won't slow down, there is medication out there. There is help out there. There are more people out there like you, like us. You're not alone. You're never alone. Just try and find your reason. Find your reason. This has become my reason. Sharing my story, mental illness advocacy. I am super early in this. I'm not going to pretend that I know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to get reps, like I said. But it was important for me also to kind of narrow my scope. And what do I mean? What do I think? What am I passionate about when it comes to eliminating the stigma surrounding mental illness, surrounding specifically, in my case, bipolar or depression or suicidal ideation? It needs to get to a place where people can be comfortable being themselves. It's that simple. It took me over 3 years to become comfortable with who I am, saying that I live with bipolar. And there's still plenty of moments where I don't, where I bartend for a living and where I sit behind the bar. I'm like, nope, I wouldn't share that for a second with this person. That might be on me. I'm not trying to say that about somebody else, but we do live in a world where more often than not, there's still a heavy stigma around mental illness, and especially severe mental illness like bipolar. I mean, you're talking about, especially at work, I mean, the minute you tell somebody you're bipolar, they're going to have thoughts. They're going to have assumptions. We use it as a derogatory term. The weather's so bipolar, meaning horrible opposites, right? He's so bipolar. I feel so bipolar. There's a negative connotation to it. You're not saying, ooh, he's so bipolar because he's got these really fun ups and downs. You might, but not really fair. When you're in a job setting, when you're in a work setting, what that automatically does is that basically takes away anything that you say from being accepted as reality. It's probably just something it's in his head. He's just being too dramatic. It's just because he's bipolar. Whatever it is, and that can go from anything. I don't want to, but I have bipolar, I live with bipolar, so that's what I want to focus on. But same thing goes even with friendships, in school, in casual conversations. And frankly, thankfully I'm at the point now where if somebody's going to judge me for something that I have and I live with and that I will live with for the rest of my life, I'm not going to give them any more of my time, and I'm not going to concern myself about it. But for somebody who's earlier on or hasn't come to that, the confidence level, I guess, the understanding, the willingness to be themselves, that's crushing. As somebody who's been there, that's crushing. It's crushing. It's still crushing when somebody assumes that you can't do something because you live with bipolar. It's still crushing when you hear somebody explain somebody else or some situation that's horrible and call it bipolar or crazy or so many other terms that I will get, or hopefully I'll get to, but we just need to work on it, because what that does is it limits people like me. It does. I mean, it has taken so much work and so much support from my girlfriend, especially my sisters, my brother, my parents, my therapist, my psychiatrist. They've all been pushing me to start doing this for a long time, and I'm taking baby steps in a comfort zone that allows me to be safe, that allows me to continue to grow and put myself out there without hopefully running into a stretch of hypomania again, and then a stretch of debilitating depression. But I have those people around me who are open, who don't subscribe to any stigma or any limitations of who I can be either. That's invaluable. So by sharing my story, by talking about it, by being open with it, maybe a caregiver sees, something that I say or something that I write and realizes I don't want to limit them anymore. I want to open up our horizons a little bit. Or I see a few signs of them being a little bit, I don't want to say a little bit higher energy, because I don't want people to be limited, but the warning signs, and hopefully I'll get into them again, sometime in the future. But that's why I'm doing this, because we need to see everybody as humans. We need to see everybody as another adult, as somebody, as an equal. And this is true in everything, but for me, my passion is mental illness because I live with it. I live with it every day. There's been times that I've been treated as not an equal, or that I've had to prove myself over and over and over and over and over again. In some instances, I understand. With my family, with my siblings, with my parents, it took a little bit of time for them to realize that I have overcome a lot of the things that held me back: drinking, gambling, not believing that I always had bipolar, whatever it was. It's going to take time sometimes to build back that trust. But as that trust got built back in myself and I was able to project that to other people, that's when those relationships really start to grow stronger. But again, that's because they started to just see me for who I am. And I'm not saying they ever did. Don't want to take it away, but I get it for who I was, for the things that I said, for the actions that I took. It was going to take a while for people to trust that I was somewhat, at least, in control of myself, and I'm never going to say in control of my emotions, or never going to say in control of my condition, because it comes back and smacks you in the face quicker than you can get those sentences out. But that I'm going to keep trying. That if I get into a hypomanic phase or a severe depression phase, that I'm not going to be so quick to lash out in anger and instead try and ask for help. And what we need as a broader society is, if somebody's having a mental breakdown and they don't know how to deal with it, that they can ask for help. We need to have spaces for them to ask for help. How amazing would it be if they could walk up to a police officer in the middle of a mental illness breakdown and ask for help, and expect to be helped with care and compassion. And I don't mean to, but anybody, instead of assumptions that something bad is going to happen, that they're under the control of some kind of substance, or they're in general completely incapable of controlling themselves, when in reality they just might need somebody to talk to. They might need access to a therapist. They might, maybe a social worker or can come in. Whatever it is, they can be taken to a safe place. We don't have those things right now. I did not know who to ask for help when I had the worst time. I didn't know where to go for help. I was able to find that with the help of my parents, with the help of therapy, with the help of my siblings, with the help of my primary care doctor, who I fortunately had an appointment with at one of my lowest points, that ended up diagnosing me, or referring me to a psychiatrist who diagnosed me and saved my life and truly saved my life going forward with the medication and her help. But if we had a society that was more open, and where we took mental illness seriously, where it wasn't just a quick questionnaire: how you feeling lately? Have you felt like you want to kill yourself? No? All right, great, sounds good. We'll see you in a year at your next physical. We need to take it seriously, because there are more people out there. But for those people who are out there who've been struggling, there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope. And maybe, like I said, maybe by doing this, I can provide that. There was a lot of rambling. This wasn't overly well organized. I won't apologize for that, because it's my first time ever doing this. So hopefully it gets better from here. But I really appreciate you watching and being my guinea pigs on this. Thank you, and have a great weekend.